Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in. Data privacy is the practice of handling information about people in a way that respects their dignity, expectations, and legal rights. It matters because nearly every modern action leaves a trace that can reveal habits, health, finances, relationships, or location, which affects safety and opportunity. Privacy is not the same as security, because privacy decides why information is collected and how it is used, while security protects that information from unauthorized access or loss. A private program asks for only what it truly needs and explains those needs clearly, while a secure program applies protections like access controls and encryption. The two disciplines work together, yet a system can be secure and still disrespect privacy if it collects excessive details or uses them for unexpected purposes. Understanding this distinction sets the stage for practical choices that protect people throughout the information lifecycle. Every privacy program follows the information from the moment it appears until the moment it disappears, which is often described as the data lifecycle. The lifecycle includes collection, use, sharing, storage, retention, and deletion, and each stage deserves deliberate controls. A food delivery app, for example, collects addresses and payment details, uses them to fulfill orders, shares address information with drivers, stores receipts for accounting, retains records for tax rules, and eventually deletes or archives data according to policy. Mapping that flow reveals where copies accumulate, which partners receive data, and which systems need extra safeguards. When teams draw simple diagrams and keep them current, they reduce surprises during audits and incident investigations. A clear lifecycle view turns abstract policy into real checkpoints that engineers, analysts, and vendors can understand and execute. Modern privacy traces back to a set of principles that shape how organizations behave and how regulators judge those behaviors. Common principles include fairness and transparency, meaning people should not be misled and should understand what happens to their information. Purpose limitation and data minimization require teams to collect only what is necessary and to use it only for stated purposes, which reduces both risk and cost. Accuracy and storage limitation encourage organizations to keep data correct and to retain it only as long as needed, which lowers exposure during breaches and audits. Integrity and confidentiality overlap with security by demanding protection against accidental or unlawful access, while accountability makes leadership responsible for proving that these principles are genuinely followed. When these ideas guide design decisions, they transform privacy from paperwork into everyday practice. Several major laws set expectations for individuals and organizations, and they share similar goals despite different scopes and language. The General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, in the European Union emphasizes rights, accountability, and strong penalties for misuse, while the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, and its amendments under the California Privacy Rights Act, CPRA, focus on transparency and choices like opting out of certain sharing. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, sets rules for health data in the United States, covering providers, insurers, and their business associates. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, restricts data collection from children under 13 in online services and requires specific parental controls. Although details differ, these laws aim to give people meaningful control and to make organizations responsible stewards of personal data. Beginners should remember that geographic reach, sector, and audience determine which rules apply. Privacy programs also rely on clear reasons for handling data, often called legal bases or permissions in regulatory frameworks. Under the GDPR, the main bases include consent, contract, legal obligation, vital interests, public task, and legitimate interests, each with specific boundaries and documentation needs. Consent must be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous, and withdrawing consent must be as easy as granting it. Contract applies when information is necessary to deliver a service someone requested, and legal obligation applies when a statute requires retention or reporting. Vital interests and public task are narrower and appear in emergencies or public functions, while legitimate interests require a balancing test to ensure people's rights are not overridden. Choosing and recording the correct basis prevents misuse and helps teams answer questions confidently during reviews. Privacy by design means building respectful data handling into products and processes from the earliest planning stages, rather than bolting it on after launch. Privacy by default means that settings favor less collection and less sharing unless a person chooses otherwise, which reduces hidden risks and surprises. Teams operationalize these ideas through patterns like minimizing fields in sign-up forms, separating analytics from identities, and using short retention periods unless a real need exists. When launching new features that involve sensitive data or large-scale monitoring, many organizations run a Data Protection Impact Assessment, DPIA, to examine risks and mitigations. Engineering practices reinforce these choices through change reviews, code checks, and configuration templates that keep defaults aligned with policy. When privacy becomes part of design culture, fewer fire drills are needed later. People have rights in many jurisdictions to see and influence data about them, and organizations need simple ways to honor those requests. Common rights include access to a copy of data, correction of inaccuracies, deletion in defined circumstances, and restriction of use during disputes or special cases. Portability allows people to receive certain data in a usable format. And objection or opt-out enables people to say no to certain processing, like targeted advertising. Many organizations centralize the intake using a form for a Data Subject Access Request, DSAR, verify the requester's identity proportionately, and track deadlines to respond. Responses explain what data is held, how it is used, and which partners receive it, and they document any lawful exceptions. A consistent process turns what might feel disruptive into a routine service. Online tracking creates special challenges because it is invisible to the eye and often involves multiple companies that receive signals as someone browses or uses an app. Cookies can store preferences or session tokens, while separate identifiers can follow activity across sites or apps for advertising and analytics. Clear notices explain what tracking occurs, consent controls allow people to choose, and preference signals, such as the Global Privacy Control, GPC, help express choices automatically. Many regions now expect easy opt-out mechanisms for targeted advertising and sensitive categories, along with truthful claims about what opting out actually stops. Good practice separates strictly necessary functions from optional tracking, and it respects choices on every device consistently. Thoughtful implementation builds trust and reduces confusing experiences with banners and pop-ups. Most organizations rely on vendors and cloud providers, which means privacy responsibilities extend beyond internal teams and systems. A data processing agreement, DPA, spells out roles, instructions, security measures, and support for rights requests, and it should cover subcontractors transparently. When data moves internationally, legal tools like standard contractual clauses, SCCs, or binding corporate rules help maintain protections across borders, alongside risk assessments of local access laws. Practical vendor reviews examine security certifications, logging visibility, breach notification terms, and the provider's retention and deletion controls. Contract language is most effective when paired with hands-on tests such as sample export and deletion exercises that confirm capabilities. Managing the vendor chain carefully prevents small oversights from turning into large incidents. Everyday safeguards make privacy real by controlling exposure and proving discipline during audits or incidents. A current data inventory, sometimes maintained as records of processing activities, ROPA, shows what exists, where it lives, and why it is kept. Retention schedules remove stale data that no longer serves a purpose, while role-based access keeps sensitive data limited to people who genuinely need it for work. Encryption in transit and at rest, often using transport layer security, TLS, and strong key management, blocks eavesdropping and reduces damage if systems are compromised. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, logging, and periodic training close common gaps that lead to accidental leaks or misuse. When these measures are routine, compliance becomes a byproduct of good engineering and governance. Incidents happen even in careful environments, and privacy-aware response focuses on people and clarity as much as containment. A personal data breach includes loss, unauthorized disclosure, or unauthorized access, and assessments consider what was involved, whether the data was protected, and the likely harm. Many laws require notifying regulators promptly and notifying affected people when risks are significant, using plain language that explains what happened and what steps are being taken. Teams coordinate legal counsel, security responders, product owners, and communications leads to ensure timelines and facts stay aligned. Post-incident reviews examine why the event occurred and whether retention, access controls, or vendor oversight should change to prevent recurrence. Treating breaches as teachable moments strengthens both privacy culture and technical resilience. Data privacy becomes tangible when it guides everyday choices across the entire life cycle, rather than appearing only in policies or banners. It shapes what gets collected, how long it remains, which partners may see it, and how quickly it disappears when no longer needed. It empowers people through understandable notices and real choices, and it equips teams through design patterns, training, and measurable controls. The ideas covered here provide a foundation that fits organizations of any size, because respectful data handling scales well and reduces surprises. With these fundamentals, beginners can recognize good practices, ask better questions, and support products that treat people fairly. A steady focus on purpose, minimization, and accountability keeps practical and durable. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.